845-7101 or at charlestongarbageservice.com.
And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes on WEIU Radio, your 13 television you have consolidated, and WEIU TV, which will air here in a little bit as well. My name is Jeff Owens. My co-host is Annalicia Haynes.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking about Casa of East Central Illinois, and among other things that we'll get to. Kristen Bertrand, Executive Director of Casa. How are you doing?
Bertrand.
Huh? Bertrand. What did I say?
Bernard, but that's okay.
Bertrand.
That's okay. It's Bertrand.
I'm losing my mind.
It's Monday.
I've had you on
okay.
before.
Yes.
I'd blame it on Dale.
Okay.
And Dale Wolf is here, the legend
Jeff.
himself.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Good. Well, I guess we'll start off a little bit. We always assume there's somebody out there that says, what is Casa? So let's start off, Kristen, about, what is Casa and just in general purposes.
Yeah, Casa is court-appointed special advocates for children. And so we are a voice for kids who have been abused or neglected at their home. So we're a voice for them in juvenile court. And so my program assigns a volunteer to watch over what is in the best interests of that child. So my volunteers go to a home to visit children, or they might go to school and talk to teachers. They might talk to neighbors or other family members. A judge appoints one of my volunteers, and that appointment has some really important papers. And those papers say that we can ask anybody we want about that child.
Okay.
No,
And,
I was going to say the volunteers are different from the board of directors.
yeah, and you're on the board, the president of the board.
No, I have been
You have
a couple of times, but
All right.
not right now.
Now you're just on the board?
I'm on the board.
And Dale has been a long time a friend of WEIU, and you're really here to talk a little bit from the board of directors' point of view about a program you have coming up,
Yes.
which is Tips for Casa.
Yes, this is about the 5th year, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
It's 5th year. Tips for Casa, and we run that once a year in the fall. It's Saturday night, September 29th, final Saturday in September. It'll be out at the Brick House Bar and Grill from 5 until 10. And we will be garnering tips from some of our celebrity bartenders that night.
There you go. And we'll, I guess, do you have enough bartenders, or what do you need?
Are you volunteering to come out and
I will
work
be
it
in
out?
Shelbyville that night. I'm sorry.
Oh, a likely story. Okay.
I can back that up with proof, but
If nothing else, you can send people out
There
to
you
give
go,
us
yeah.
tips. How's
That's what we're
that?
here for today, right?
Yes.
So
We have usually 2 people each of the hours, and they change on the hour, so
Yeah.
we get different people in. And they represent different groups from around the area. They could represent banks or Eastern or the hospital or real estate or whatever it could be. And sometimes we have a little overlap, people who wish to come back and do it again, and other times we try some new blood too.
So you got to do what? I guess obviously you want people there to come that night, but is there a need for any volunteers or any help for the evening of September 29th?
No, for that evening, our board members are the assistants for the night, and we just make sure that our celebrity bartender has everything that they need, and then the board member is there to welcome people, to introduce Casa, to explain what Casa has going on. And we have a raffle that night. Each of the celebrities brings an item from their business, and we put that into one big basket, and usually have some pretty great stuff. So anyway, they help us selling tickets for that.
Okay. Now, is it just anybody can come to the event, or is there tickets for the event? Talk about that.
Absolutely. No tickets, no cover charges, whatever. It's just going on there that evening. There's advertisement out. It'll be mentioned on the bulletin boards. It'll be mentioned in the newspaper and so on and so forth. And I think now that we're in the 5th year, I think there's people who kind of know it's coming. And
Look for that marked event and do it. Obviously, Casa is important for the children, so I'm going to go back to Kristen for a minute. And that's what it's really about. Is about making sure the kids are in the safest possible home. You don't have an easy job, obviously, when you're doing this. So talk about the advocates and their role in this to really try to rectify a really sometimes a horrible situation for a child.
Right. Well, I'm going to start with how many kids we've been assigned to this year.
Okay.
This is September 10th. We've had 134 children in Coles and Cumberland County that we've been assigned to be a volunteer for. 56 of that 134 are new. Just this year. Their parents have either used substances causing neglect, or there's been some other reason that the parents need to correct something that's been going on in the life of the child.
And that's since January 1st?
That's since January 1st, that
Okay.
56. And We have 42 volunteers, the most volunteers we've had since I've been involved with the program. We've had 3 classes, and we're going to have a 4th this year just because we've been slammed. There's so many more investigators with DCFS who are finding the abuse and neglect going on with children. And we know it's out there, and now we're seeing more and more of it, more kids that we can help.
Based on, I mean, can you go back a couple of years and give us an idea on how much that is up per numbers for the year?
Yeah, last year there were 13 new cases at this time. The year before that, it was an up year again. There were 52 new at this time. So there's an ebb and flow every year that we see it. But last year at this time, we were still reeling from 2016. This year, we're still trying to play catch up. And 3 classes, I thought I'd have enough volunteers, but we're going to have a 4th that starts September 24th.
Oh, go ahead, Dale.
I was going to add one thing for the audience benefit, and that is it's only been a few years now that it's been Casa of East Central Illinois.
Yeah, it was
For many years it was Casa of Coles County.
Yeah.
But in came Cumberland County as part of the organization now. So some of the numbers can be coming from Cumberland County as well.
Our
what
most,
kind of-
go ahead, Dale.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just going to say, what kind of people do you look for in volunteers? Is it someone that needs to have some sort of degree in child development or something along the lines of that?
Not at all. Our volunteers range from students who are at EIU to retired folks. I have one volunteer who's in his 80s, and he's been a volunteer for 25 years. He's still doing this,
That's
and
so
I'm
sweet.
so thankful for it. I have working moms, working dads, and I have people that are retired, all age ranges, and they do have to have 30 hours of training. We have a CASA training program that starts June 24th, and so it'll go every Monday for 8 sessions. And after that training, they swear an oath before a judge that says that they will report abuse and neglect, and they will keep things confidential. We won't talk about these
Right.
cases. You know, we won't use names. We won't tell people what's going on in the life of the child. We will be a voice to the judge and tell him what's going on. And we share information with caseworkers who are assigned to those kids, but we don't talk about it anywhere else. And so our volunteers, they find out about us through social media or through the newspaper or just word of mouth. Other volunteers saying, this is what I do and I find it valuable. I think you would be great at this.
Is substance abuse the main issue? I mean, is that the main one? If you had to, like, of the 56 this year, is substance abuse almost all of them, or?
Earlier in the year, I tried to figure out where we were at, and I don't know of the 56, but
Yeah.
of our 134,
Yeah.
about 72% of those cases are because of the substance abuse of the parents. And the issue around here is meth. There's an opioid crisis amongst the nation, but here it is meth.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that, I've heard people refer to Mattoon as Meth-toon, jokingly. But when you think 3 out of 4 are basically, when you look at it, of your cases are substance abuse, and that's the underlying problem. Looks like in Coles and Cumberland County, which is alarming, in my opinion. I mean, when you think about that many of your percentage that's the issue. So how scary is that number when you said, man, 70? I'm going to say 3/4, but 72%.
Well, I am seeing more and more parents correcting the conditions that cause the kids to have to come into care. And so we see a larger portion of kids that go home than are adopted out to foster families, traditional foster
So the parents
families.
are getting the help they need?
I do see more and more of that.
Is it both parents, or does it have to be one of the 2 parents that would make a kid have to leave for a certain time?
It just varies. A lot of times it's one parent that gets in trouble and the other parent might not be involved in the life of that child. And so having the case may re-engage that mom or that dad with that child again.
You said you're going to start a 4th training, so can you give us the details on that in case somebody's interested?
Yeah, it starts on September 24th. It'll be in the evening. And if someone is interested in filling out the application that we have, you just find us online. It's casaeci.org or our Facebook page, or our phone number is 217 348-0599. I don't give that very often anymore, but
If you just Google Casa,
348-0599.
East Central Illinois, it comes right up to the top. So,
Oh, good.
But that's what I did this morning as we, as I looked it up. So, because I always think it was. I started writing down Casa of Coles County because we've done this.
Right.
We've had them on, probably
That's why we
6-7
bring
times
that
over
up.
the years, and then oh, it's East Central Illinois.
It's only
now.
been a few years.
Yeah, so I wrote the ECI down so I wouldn't screw up too bad.
But,
I
you
just
know,
got your name wrong, but.
That's
I was
okay.
just going to say, CASA's been around longer than people realize
Yeah.
for the numbers who don't know of it. Next year is the 25th year. And a little advance information, we're going to have a little special event that the public will be able to get tickets and come and celebrate with us next
Dale
year.
is ever
Just that we throw that in right now.
Yeah, that's a nice
Ever
little
the
plugger.
promoter. And in 25 years from that, Dale will be planning the 50th anniversary.
So then, I know what the Child Protection Services, what they do, and so with the volunteers, is it like you're aiding the caseworkers, or how? What's their purpose in the? Yeah.
Right. So
in the structure.
caseworkers are assigned to maybe 25 families, whereas a CASA volunteer has one family that they're a voice for. And so our volunteer visits a child at least one time a month, but during that month, the volunteer might be talking to the parents, might be talking to the service provider to find out how are the parents doing in correcting the conditions. They're sharing information with the caseworker. If we find something out that's useful to the caseworker, we do want to share it with them because they're the ones that make those decisions, make the critical services for kids. We get to recommend, though, what we think is best for the child. We might give them a piece of information that they can use in order to find a therapist that could do play therapy with a child that has had some significant trauma experienced. So I find that our volunteers, they find information that might have fallen in the gap. That the state agency might not know about or might not see. And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, our recommendations are the same as the caseworker. It's just once in a while that we see it maybe a little bit differently, but we are a voice for the judge. And so our volunteer takes all that information that they've found and they write it in a court report so that the judge can see this is what's been going on with the child. This is what the parents have done in order to correct, and this is the recommendation. And sometimes we have to say, no, we don't recommend that the kids go back because the parents may have done nothing.
Is that difficult to have to deal with? Because I know it's difficult to deal with a child who's been in a situation like that, because children don't deserve something like that. But is it difficult to have to deal with the family?
We find that parents are happy to know that we are there about the child, and they want to share information with us about how to get the children, back in their home. After a while, it might be a little difficult, but if it ever becomes dangerous, well, the caseworker doesn't go there, so then we don't. But most of the parents that we meet, we like. They're people
comforting.
just like you and me that have made a mistake. And so it's easy to show them respect when we think of them as just another person that's down the street.
Right, and the reason why I bring it up is because, the idea of the kids being taken, there's this negative stigma that comes with the state agency. And I mean, you see it in like Law and Order, Special Victims, you know what I mean? You see it on TV, and it's advertised in such a bad, I shouldn't say advertised, but it's portrayed in such a bad way, like, oh, they're ripping their children away from them. But I feel like your program puts it gives it a human aspect, and it's very personal and intimate. And I think that's fantastic. It definitely changes the mind of that people might have.
And the state agency has done a lot to hire more investigators, and those investigators then can spend a lot more time trying to find family members to place those children with,
Right.
so that a child doesn't go to a total stranger's home. They are trying to mitigate that by finding a teacher or a neighbor or another family member that's willing to have that child come live with them for a short period of time while the parents are correcting conditions. And that makes such less trauma for a child.
Right, that's fantastic.
When you say short period of time, what is the actual timeline? Is there? I know there's not like 6 weeks and they get the kid back, but what's the average, or like some kind of if you could give us an information?
We ask volunteers to commit at least 18 months
18.
To be a CASA volunteer, but we find that cases last around 26 months, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter.
For the benefit of, again, for people out there who might be considering not maybe board, but volunteer.
Right.
And I'm not trying to speak over what she's saying, but the really, other than the original outlay of that particular time that she mentioned, there really isn't a specific amount of time, effort, number of times, number of years, whatever. It's very open-ended when it comes to that part of it. So if a volunteer is wondering, well, am I giving up the next 5 years of my life, or am I giving up 5 days a week, et cetera? It does vary from volunteer to volunteer.
And on the day that they have at least one day a week that they meet with the child, is it that with the family, or is that not, or how's that work?
It's only one time a month that we ask them.
Okay, yeah.
And it might be viewing the child while they are participating in a visit with their parents. It might be in the foster home. If the child's school age, they might get to go to school and just talk to the child for a half an hour. It varies the time that they spend with the child. And it also varies depending the age of the child. If that child is a baby, then all we're really doing is observing the caretaker, for that little one. With older youth, that's when we build a relationship, because if you see a teenager every month, you're going to have new things to talk about, their interests. You're going to want to know what's going on with them.
And on the September 24th class of volunteers that you're looking for, how many more volunteers right now are you looking at adding so you can meet all your case needs?
We have about 19 kids, which represents six to seven families that we need to have a volunteer for. But this is September. We still have a few more months in the year, and we could have more cases come. So
be nice to have
many
a dozen
people.
Or so, maybe.
Oh, it would be great.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's get back to Dale a little bit. Dale, what got you involved in wanting to help this particular program? And people, if you don't know, Dale Wolf's been around Charleston for a long time and was admissions director at EIU. And so you've been in this community a long time, but you lend your hand a lot. Well, what kind of got you to Casa?
Well, to back it up even further, I do remember a person who retired from Eastern some years ago, Terry Widener, who was in administration here, and he said what you do is the first 2 or 3, 4 months that you're retired, you just say no to everything. And then, because you're doing that time, you're looking at what's out there and deciding how much of your time you want to or can give to various things. You can't do it with everything. I would never want to do it with nothing. But it was really the previous person before Kristen was the director over at the office, who came to me at another club meeting we were both involved in and said, would you consider coming in and being involved with the board of Casa? So I read more about Casa, because like a lot of folks in the community, didn't know a lot about it and knew of it, but didn't know a lot about it, and read about it. And that's definitely something you want to be able to help with. And you look into the time commitments and decide if it's the right thing for you. And that's kind of how I got started with it. And I've had several shifts with the board and enjoy all the time with it. It's very different than the advocate, what we're doing. We're overseeing, we're handling budgets, we're helping plan events, et cetera, et cetera. The advocates deal directly with the families.
But you also know the good work that they do, and that's got to have a little bit a factor in why you would stay with an organization, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, so I guess the question is, when you think about the importance of Casa and the funding, so talk about like the tips program, why it's so needed, and how you're funded overall.
I don't think there's any social or almost any kind of organization that doesn't have need of funds, especially true of service type things such as Casa, because as we all know, it's hard to get, everybody wants the same grants and so on. So fundraising is needed, and we're not the size of a major large city, so we are asking the same people that other organizations are also asking. So I feel that considering everything in the size of the town and the county, that people are fairly generous with their monies that they give out for donations.
Would you like to add anything to that? That was well said, by the way, and I hate to give you credit for stuff, Dale.
Well, 25% of our budget comes from the community, comes from the philanthropic giving of individuals that just decide they want to give to Casa, and that would be businesses as well as individuals. And then about 17% of our fundraising comes from a county fee. When someone commits a misdemeanor or a felony, a little bit of what their fine goes to Casa.
Oh.
And then 15% comes from our fundraisers. And so Tips for Casa would be one of those. And then the rest of that comes from different grants that I write.
Now, how has Cumberland County, I don't want to say helped, but I mean, how has that partnership with another county improved or bettered the organization?
Right now, there are 16 kids that we are a voice for in Cumberland County, and we've done a Glow Bingo the last couple years down in Cumberland County, and just an overwhelming amount of the community has wanted to come forth and really be the people that fund the kids that are there, the work that we do there. I have 7 volunteers that do the cases that are down there. And 4 of them actually live in the county, which I'm so happy for.
Yeah, that's nice, yeah.
And then 1 lives in Effingham, and then the other 2 that are doing work down there live in Coles County.
There are CASA organizations all over.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean,
There's
how do we piece it?
but there's
Every county
but-
have
but
one?
No, that's just it. There's not one in every single county. There's 101 counties. I know, I've been in all of them. There's 101 counties in Illinois, and there's not 101
Have you
CASAs.
thought, now, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Have we thought about expanding here in Central Illinois? I mean, you can't be CASA of Champaign County, but CASA of Edgar or Christian or Douglas. Or,
It does come up.
Yeah.
Right, so we expanded to Cumberland,
Yeah.
and we would like to do another county in our area, but it really depends on the judge, and
Okay.
a judge has to invite a CASA program to come into their county.
Your mind reader. I was
Yeah.
going to wonder what was the process, and you got right there.
So there are 31 CASA programs in Illinois, and that represents about 45 of the counties. And National CASA is very careful about expansion. They don't want a group of people to say, hey, I want CASA in my county, if they don't have the funding, if they don't have the judges, like they're very cautious about giving us the go-ahead to move forward.
I mean, this isn't something, you're not just starting.
The
to
addition
shop
of Cumberland, which has only been in the last few years, has actually been on our agenda for looking into that for a number of years prior to that. It wasn't like we decided, well, Cumberland County because we can do this, and we were in there the next year. No, was a number of years just to get Cumberland County added.
Oh, really? Wow. Interesting. Now, I want to ask a quick, unrelated question to Dale, because as the former...
We wouldn't talk about
Well, we're not
unrelated
talking about
things.
baseball yet. We're not talking about baseball yet, Dale, all right? I wanted to know last week when you saw that the numbers were up at Eastern Illinois, being the former admissions person here. I mean, were you excited? How proud did you feel about this community?
Anytime, in fact, I went the next day after the art information came out and stopped at Old Main and said something to Dave Glassman and to Kelly Miller, who I've known for years too, and congratulated them. I said, anytime we can talk about being more in the black than in the red is a good thing. If we are 1 person more than last year, you're up. Now, we're not where we were. I know the school would like to be a little larger than it is right now, but it was, I'll be honest, it was difficult for me watching the last decade, the numbers kind of seep away from us.
Right.
It might have been easier if I didn't live here to be able to deal with looking at those numbers.
Right.
But that was a little difficult, and so watching it finally maybe bottom out and maybe move in the other direction, I was very happy for all of them.
So
I think the whole town was excited, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. All the businesses are talking about it, but what are
They
the
should
next
be.
steps?
I'm sorry?
What are the next steps now since enrollment is up?
Okay.
And
The same thing that I talked about for years when I was still working, that's retention. I always felt retention was as important as admission, because every student that doesn't stay, admission has to go out and find somebody to replace that student as well as a new student. So the better the retention is at a school, the more likely you have your enrollment being able to be more stable and being able to add to it. If people are coming in one door and going out another, it doesn't matter how many new students you bring in, you're not going to gain.
Good answer. You seem to be pro-EIU. We like you now. All right. Now, Kristen, I always ask you this every year, so I'm going to put you on the spot once again, but you got to be ready for this one coming. Can you give us a 1-minute synopsis of a great success story since the last time we spoke, which would have been a year ago? That just, and I know you can't give names or something, but this may be a kid that you kind of had a special, relationship with, or one of your advocates did that you can tell us about.
Well, yeah, there's a young woman who has been a DCFS ward for many years, and she's living independently right now and going to school, high school on her own. She's living in a home not on her own. She's got other people that are her age that have worked through the system and have gained resilience over the years, and she's doing really well. Our Casa volunteer meets with her every week. Not every week, every month. They text. I'm just really proud of the work that she's done. To be able to continue in high school when you don't have family support is a huge task for a young woman, and so I'm really proud of this young woman and the work that she's done for herself, and glad that we have a volunteer that meets with her and talks with her and can encourage her and be her cheerleader, because really with teens, that's what you need to do. We can't really provide a lot of services for them and make sure that that's happening, but we can be a ear to listen, and that's what her advocate has done.
Wow, I wish we could just stop now, because I'd just like to end it on that. That's awesome. That's what it's about. You do such great work.
I feel like crying right
we
now.
always joke, and I mean this sincerely every time I say, Kristen, we wish she wasn't in the community. We wish there wasn't a need for you, but what you do is unfriggin' believable. And I can't wait till we talk again next year. We'll talk about some of these same things, but what you do is unreal. And I just wish you the best of success as we move forward, and best of luck for the TIPS program on the 29th. A couple minutes left. We'll do world famous 8 questions to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. She almost brought tears to 4 people's eyes, but we're all fighting them back. So we'll talk a little bit. The best thing about Charleston. We'll go down the line. Or EIU, however you want to do it. Kristen first.
Oh, EIU, I'm proud. I've got a son that's graduated with a master's from Eastern and a daughter who's here right now. I'm so thankful that they've gotten an education right here.
Mr. Wolf?
I think having lived in a major city and knowing people from very small communities, I like the mid-size of the town. I think it's one of the reasons I liked working at Eastern was the mid-size of the university. There's something to be said about enough, but not too little, not too big. So I think that really comes into play for me.
You think?
That I have to agree, because that's the reason why I came here, because I'm from Chicago. So coming down to a smaller town where you still have your privacy, but everyone still kind of knows everyone.
Were you from Chicago or the burbs?
No, I'm from. Do you know where Beverly is?
Yeah, I know where Beverly is.
And then
He
we
knows
moved to.
where
And then
everything
we moved to Blue Island. Do you know where that is? It's
Yeah.
right next to Beverly.
Eisenhower High School.
Yeah. That's where I
All
went
right,
to
we
high
got a minute and a
school.
half, Dale. So your favorite current Cubs player? You guys can add if you have one, but I'm going to ask Dale. Your favorite current Cubs player? Put you on the spot.
Wow. I really like Wilson Contreras because I admire catchers. Catcher's a hard position in baseball. I mean, I could never have done that. So I guess because he has to catch every day and he's involved in the middle of a ball game all the time.
Yeah, Cubs
There's no
fans?
such thing as Cubs in my household.
Okay,
So yeah.
Are you a Cubs fan over there?
I am a Cubs fan, but
favorite
I
Cubs
don't
fan?
have a
Have a
favorite player. I just watch with my husband, so.
All-time favorite Cubs player, Dale?
Well, because of when I grew up, it would be Ernie Banks because I saw him the first years of his career and kind of grew up in the city, living there with him. So I guess all time. And there's some I never got to see, so I can't go back further than that.
There you go. Favorite Cubs manager of all time? Last one, Dale, for the Cubs.
Truthfully,
Yeah.
Leo. Before Joe Madden now, but Leo DeRocher because he was the first manager that actually they had a winning team because I watched them lose every year.
All right. Well, thank you both for coming in so much. The TIPS program is September 29th.
It's Saturday, September 29th, the Brick House, 5 to 10. Come on out. Any hour you want.
Just Google Casa of East Central Illinois, and you can get all the information you need. We appreciate you coming in. Best of luck on your events, and everybody have a great fall. And Lisa, have a great day.
Oh, I'll try.
This is HitMix 88.9 WEIU. You're 13 WEIU.